Hi everyone! We're learning about honeybees this week, and that's why I have Carl here, because he is a beekeeper and he knows all about honeybees. So first I'm going to read you a book, and then we have some cool stuff to show you. Buzzing through a warm afternoon, a little worker bee dips into colorful flowers again and again and again. From each flower, she collects a sweetened liquid called nectar. She sips the runny nectar through her straw-like tongue and stores it in a special, just for honey, tummy. The tongue is called a proboscis. Flower pollen dusts the bee like fluffy golden snow. Every once in a while she stops, rolls the pollen into balls, and stuffs these into tiny sacs on her back legs. When the bee is so heavy with nectar and pollen she can barely fly, she heads home to the hive. Thousands of other workers are arriving home too.
This is what is inside the bee's home. This is a frame of honeycomb, and the comb is filled with cells, and that's where the queen lays her eggs and where the bees store the honey and the pollen.
Inside the hive, the air hums with excitement. Bees bustle to and fro. The whole colony works together for its queen. As long as she is safe and healthy, so is the hive. Worker bees bring her food and carry out her waste. They fan their wings to keep the hive cool. One of the most important jobs in the hive is caring for the queen's many eggs. Through spring and summer, she lays up to 2,000 eggs per day. She wiggles her abdomen down into a honeycomb and drops each egg into its own 6-walled cell.
So this is a model of a cell, and if you look closely, you can see a tiny little egg. And the queen will dip her abdomen into one of these holes and put the egg on the very bottom of the hole.
An eggshell melts away, and hello larva. The chubby baby looks nothing like a bee yet. For 3 days, the larva is fed a milky mush called royal jelly. Then it is switched to a honey pollen mixture called bee bread.
And here is the larva.
Doesn't look like a bee yet.
And there's the pupa.
Finally, a honeybee chews open its cocoon and climbs out of its cozy cell. Honeybees keep their hive clean and neat, so the new bee's first job is to clean her room. Hives can be found in unusual places. Many honeybees live in human-made hives. A beekeeper opens a hive to remove part of the sticky, golden honey. Yum. If you can see, right back there are honeybee hives. And, want to show the honey? That's honey from the hives. Now, is honey always that color?
It depends on the type of flower and the time of year that the flower is blooming. So honey can be darker in the fall, or it can be light like this if it was collected in the spring.
Hope you find a lot of lovely flowers. So isn't that interesting that honey can change colors depending on what kind of flowers honeybees get their food from? So we also have some really cool stuff that beekeepers use to take care of the honeybees, and Carl's going to tell us all about that.
So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have a veil. And so this is attached to a bigger suit, but your head and face go in here so you can still look out, but the bees can't get in. And you'll also want to put on some thick, heavy gloves. And then this special tool is called a smoker. So you open the top and you light a tiny fire in there and close it up. And every time you squeeze this, it puffs out smoke. And when you puff the smoke onto the bees, that calms them down so that you can go in and take out the frames and look at how much honey they have stored, how many eggs the queen is laying, and you're really looking to see how healthy the hive is doing.
And how do you get the honey out of the hive?
So, if you go into your hive and you see all of these cells are filled up with honey, when there's honey in them and it's ready, they'll cap it. And so all of these will have a little top on them. And so when the whole frame, both sides, is filled up with that honey, you take it out, you make sure that no bees come with you, and then you go and you cut off those tops, and then the honey drains out.
And do beekeepers get stung by honeybees?
Sometimes. That's why you make sure that you have all your gear. So you make sure you have your gloves and your suit with your veil so that you can take care of the bees and not worry about them stinging. But that's why the smoker is so important, because when you puff the smoke on them, it calms them down and stops them from flying around. So if you take care to do all the steps properly, the bees won't sting you.
Sounds good. Okay, now we're going to take you over to, what is that called again?
That's an observation hive.
An observation hive. It's one part of the beehive put into a special glass box so that you can watch all the bees inside. So,
and when you look, make sure you look to see if you see any cells that are covered up. And if they're covered and they're sealed, then there might be either a pupa or some honey inside that cell.
All right, let's go see.
So if you come in and look closely, you can see how there's some empty cells down here, but all of these are filled up and sealed, and inside of each of those cells is full of honey. And so that's what these bees are doing. They're either bringing honey in or they're capping it off. And if you see any of them flapping their wings, that's them dehydrating the nectar so that it can become honey. So these are beehives, and you can see that there's 2 boxes stacked on top of each other. Each one of those boxes has 10 frames inside of it. And when the bees fill up all of those frames, you can add more boxes on top of that. And so these 2 are where the bees live and where the queen lays her eggs. And then you can add some smaller boxes on top, and that's where the bees store their honey. Bees need to drink water too. If you put some water out in your garden, maybe you can see where some bees come and drink up.